Okay, Steve again here. Today I'm going to tell you quite an exciting story. This is from chapter 13 from my book, EZDRAS Insights, which is based on the Apocryphal book of 2nd EZDRAS. This is a remarkable chapter in that it's talking about Jesus, it's talking about the King of Kings, it's talking about the Messiah, 500 years before he was even born. Very, very interesting. And it starts with this vision that Ezra had. That God gave him this vision. Now I'll read you some of the verses from the chapter. It's quite a long chapter, so I'll just read some of the verses and I'll give some of the explanations that I gave in the book. But I thought this time I'd draw it out a bit, tell you a little bit about it, give you a summary of it, because it's unusual. And what amazes me is who in their right mind would get rid of the Apocrypha books, take them out of the King James Bible in 1885, and bury books of this caliber. This was one of them. This is one of the ones that used to be in the King James version of the Bible. I believe it's still in the Catholic Bible, possibly in the Orthodox Bible, but it's certainly not in the King James version of the Bible. Anyway, without further ado, I'll give you some idea, some of the verses here. So this is 2nd EZDRAS, or in my case in my book, EZDRAS Insights, chapter 13, verse 1. After 7 days I dreamed a dream in the night, and behold, a wind arose from the sea and stirred up all its waves. And I looked, and behold, this wind made something like a figure of a man come out of the heart of the sea. And I looked, and behold, that man flew with the clouds of heaven, and wherever he turned his face to look, everything under his gaze trembled. And whenever his voice issued from his mouth, all who heard his voice melted as wax melts when it feels the fire. Verse 2. And after this I looked, and behold, an innumerable multitude of men were gathered together from the four winds of the heaven to make war against a man who came up out of the sea. And I looked, and behold, and he carved out for himself a great mountain and flew upon it. And I tried to see the region or place from which the mountain was carved, but I could not. Verse 3. After this I looked, and behold, all who had gathered together against him to wage war with him were much afraid, yet they dared to fight. And behold, when he saw the onrush of the approaching multitude, he neither lifted his hand nor held a spear or any other weapon of war, but only saw how he sent forth from his lips a flaming breath, as it were a stream of fire, and from his lips a flaming breath, and from his tongue he shot forth a storm of sparks. Verse 4. And these were mingled together, the stream of fire and the flaming breath and the great storm, and fell on the onrushing multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them all up, so that suddenly nothing was seen of the innumerable multitude, but only dust of ashes and the smell of smoke. When I saw it, I was amazed. Verse 5. After this I saw the same man come down from the mountain, and called to him another multitude that was peaceable. Then many people came to him, some of whom were joyful and some sorrowful, some of them were bound, and some were bringing others as offerings. Verse 6. Then in great fear I awoke, and I besought the Most High, and said, From the beginning thou hast shown thy servant these wonders, and hast deemed me worthy to have my prayers heard by thee. Now show me also the interpretation of this dream. Verse 7. But as I considered in my mind, alas, for those who will be left in those days, and still more, alas, for those who are not left. For those who are not left will be sad, because they understand what is reserved for the last days, but cannot attain it. Verse 8. But alas for those also who are left, and for this reason, for they shall see great dangers and much distress, as these dreams show. Yet it is better to come into these things, though incurring peril, than to pass from the world like a cloud, and not see what shall happen in the last days. Verse 9. He answered me and said, I'll tell you the interpretation of the vision, and I'll also explain to you the things which you have mentioned. As for what you said about those who are left, this is the interpretation. He who brings the peril at that time will himself protect those who fall into peril, who have works and have faith in the Almighty. Understand, therefore, that those who are left are more blessed than those who have died. This is the interpretation of the vision. As for your seeing a man come out of the heart of the sea, this is he whom the Most High has been keeping for many ages, who will himself deliver his creation, and he will direct those who are left. As for your seeing wind and fire and a storm coming out of his mouth, verse 11, and as for his not holding a spear or weapon of war, yet destroying the onrushing multitude which came to conquer him, this is the interpretation. Behold, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth, and bewilderment of mind shall come over those who dwell on the earth. 12. And they shall plan to make war one against another, city against city, place against place, people against people, kingdom against kingdom. When these things come to pass, and the signs occur which I have showed you before, then my Son, capital S, will be revealed, whom you saw as a man coming out of the sea. This is quite remarkable, as you can see, as God is saying that his Son, the Messiah, is the man you see in this vision. And this is 500 years before Christ. Remarkable. Remarkable prophecy that everybody should be aware of, that it exists here in the Apocryphal book of 2nd EZDRAS. Alright, verse 13. And when all nations hear his voice, every man shall leave his own land, and a warfare that they have against one another. And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as you saw, designed to come and conquer him, but he shall stand on the top of Mount Zion. Verse 14. And Zion will come and be made manifest to all people, prepared and built, as you saw the mountain, carved out without hands. And he, my Son, will reprove the assembled nation for their ungodliness, and will reproach them to their face with their evil thoughts and the torments with which they are to be tortured, which are symbolized by the flames, and will draw them without effort by the law, symbolized by the fire. And as for your seeing him gather together to himself another multitude that was peaceable, these are the 10 tribes which were led astray from their own land into captivity in the days of Hosea, whom Shalmaneser, king of the Assyrians, led captive. He took them across the river, and they were taken into another land. Verse 17. But they formed this plan for themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the nations and go to a more distant region, where mankind has never lived, that there at least they might keep their statutes, which they had not kept in their own land, and they went in by the narrow passages of the Euphrates River. 18. For at that time the Most High performed signs for them, stopped the channels of the river, until it had passed over through that region. There was a long way to go, a journey of a year and a half, and a country called Azareth. Then they dwelt there until the last times, and now when they're about to come again. Very mysterious, all this. 19. The Most High will stop the channels of the river once again, so they may be able to pass over. Therefore you saw the multitude gathered together in peace, but those who are left of your people, who are found within my borders, shall be saved. Therefore, when he destroys the multitude of the nations that are gathered together, he will define the people who remain. Then he will show them very many wonders. Verse 20. I said, O sovereign Lord, explain this to me. Why did I see the man coming up from the heart of the sea? He said unto me, just as no one can explore or know what is in the depths of the sea, so no one on earth can see my Son, or those who are with him, except in the time of his day. This is the interpretation of the dream which you saw, and you alone have been enlightened about this, because you have forsaken your own ways and applied yourself to mine. and have searched out my law. For you have devoted your life to wisdom and called understanding your mother. Therefore I have shown you this, for there is a reward laid up with the Most High. And after 3 more days I'll tell you other things and explain weighty and wondrous matters to you. Then I arose and walked in the field, giving great glory and praise to the Most High, because of his wonders, which he did from time to time, and because he governs the times and whatever things come to pass in their seasons. And I stayed there 3 days. Well, in conclusion, I'd say this chapter is very important for people to read. This chapter in 2nd EZDRAS, the Apocrypha book 2nd EZDRAS, or you can read it also in my book, EZDRAS Insights, with all the commentary and the cross-reference Bible verses. I'll just read you a few of the comments to just one of the verses. Maybe one of the very interesting ones. I'll read you about this mysterious topic about the missing 10 tribes of Israel who disappeared in around 722 to 30 BC. They disappeared and they haven't actually been traced ever since. But according to this Apocrypha book, the reason is, and you have to understand, actually most of the people of the 10 tribes of Israel, they were done away with by the Assyrians when they were taken captivity. But there was a number of them, I don't know how many, they made a pact with God that they were going to move away from the earth. They were going to move to another place, far away, which is very, very fascinating. Anyway, it's not just me saying this, but there's many people saying this about this country they went to, Azareth, that it was a location inside the earth. Anyway, I'll read you some of the comments I put at the time when I wrote this book. So, comment 8. This is indeed a mind-boggling verse as it reveals some amazing secrets. The lost 10 tribes of Israel. This 17th verse most definitely gives the impression that a group of people representing the 10 tribes made some sort of pact with God, whereby they wanted to live his laws to the full without corruption coming back in, as they had done back in their land of Israel countless times. It would seem that these people were given special instructions to go to a more distant region where mankind had never lived. And as they went in, listen to this, get this, and they went in by the narrow passages of the Euphrates River. The fact that it states here that the 10 tribes or representatives of the 10 tribes went to a place where mankind had never lived before, very odd. There are many sites on the internet that claim that the 10 tribes disappeared inside the earth and descended into the inner earth. It is also stated that these 10 tribes will return to Israel at the time of the Messiah or the second coming of Christ. It is also believed that by many, that man lived inside the hollow earth before the flood and outside after the flood. That indeed is a mystery, which is difficult to pin down one way or the other. Others claim that God put mankind on the outer surface of the earth right after Adam and Eve were forced out of the Garden of Eden. I've studied this topic of the hollow earth many times over the years, and it does appear to be a valid argument and a distinct probability that the earth, as well as the moon, the stars, are all hollow. It is also stated that many people now live inside the hollow earth, along with many other strange creatures. Apparently, there are also very large caverns underground, where some peoples and other underworldly creatures also live. Being a Christian myself, I would not normally advise anyone to go downwards into the earth, but to look heavenward to God and his futuristic heavenly city. Okay, so that's just a taste here of the mysterious disappearance of the 10 northern tribes of Israel in around 730 BC. What happened to them? I think this Apocrypha book of Ezra lets the cat out of the bag of prophecy and tell you something incredible. That there's an underworld, there's another place. And it's not all bad things down there like people think, oh, that's hell and lake of fire. Well, that does exist there in a lower dimension. But there also exists physical places down there inside the earth. has been proved by famous people like Admiral Byrd in the United States, most decorated admiral in history. He also said the same thing. There's an inner earth. So that's just a little taste of this mysterious chapter here, which goes into the paranormal as well, as you can see. You can call it paranormal. All paranormal means is outside of the normal. In other words, it's not what we're used to normally happening. It's not something, woo, something negative. It doesn't have to be. There's lots of paranormal, supernatural things happening that are not negative. They're just out of this world. Anyway, that's a taste from this. I find this book amazing. EZDRAS Insights, an amazing book of Second EZDRAS, the Apocrypha book. Fantastic stuff to read. And that's just one of the mysterious things in this book that I think you'll find very interesting. There's another place in this book where God actually says that I'll send my son to the earth in 400 years. And that's exactly what happened. Now, how many people know that? Well, you won't know it unless you read these Apocrypha books, of which this is one of them. That's why I've written the 7 Insights books, because they're based on the Apocrypha books, or 6 of them are, and they reveal amazing information you won't find in the Bible. You'll find some of it in the Bible, shell of the story, but the heart of the story and the mysterious and the supernatural and the incredible things you'll find in the Apocrypha books. I suppose that's why somebody took the Apocrypha books out of the Bible, because they didn't want people to know how supernatural everything is, how incredible God's creation is. And the Apocrypha books do not negate the Bible. No, on the contrary, they complement it. They help it. And that's why is to get a full Bible education or biblical education, you should also know the Apocrypha books. Well, that's enough from me, Steve, signing out here. But I do like to encourage people, please do get my set of Insights books. This one's called EZDRAS Insights. And I have, my latest one is Eden Insights. That's from the Lost Books, Adam and Eve. And then I've got Jubilees Insights on the Book of Jubilees. Jasher Insights, Book 1 and 2 on the Book of Jasher. So I'd like to encourage everybody, please get my Insights books, and you can find them at Amazon. Have a great day.